Welcome to day 166 of the 300 Movie Challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of March 2008, which was Horton Hears the Who. It
Where?
turned into an
Okay.
anime for 2 minutes.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, I don't know if I should feel offended or if it was just so weird that I'm not offended.
Yeah, it was more just like, what the fuck is happening?
Especially since you could take out that sequence and nothing would change
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it was like, I mean, it comes out of nowhere, and then
Yeah.
it's just completely irrelevant. So yeah, that was a thing.
It's like one of those jokes. This movie was full of like references and jokes that seriously date the movie, and I know this is usually like a criticism in writing where if you put like modern day references too heavily in your piece, then it dates your piece so that like later on if somehow you end up being kind of like a literary read or someone down the line reads it, then they're going to be like, "Oh wow, this is like kind of tacky now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of understand that after like reading a bunch of stuff from like when I was in school and then seeing some of the films that we've been seeing. Like sometimes it's like funny if that was like a joke that was like important to you, but if it's not a joke that's important to you or it's just like the product of a really weird time in like that year, then you're just like, "Oh my god."
Well,
Yeah.
it reminds me of like so much like meme shit now, because
Yeah.
literally it's like the most common quote unquote joke is like just like a reference to something. And it's
Yeah.
like just making it a reference doesn't make it funny, and like it's gonna, you're gonna date it like really heavily. And I'm just trying to imagine, like, 20 years from now, people being like, "Holy fuck, we were not funny." Like
Yeah.
it's you know
Yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. It's like it might be like okay for the short term for like a niche audience, but for the long term for a wide audience, it's not going to be effective at all.
Nope.
So, pro tip for anyone like with any kind of writing, don't do that, or if you do it sparingly so
Yep.
that you don't date it too much.
Or do it in a way where there's like an actual joke behind it instead of just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he said a thing I recognize," because that's not
Yeah.
a joke.
Or being like, oh, anime. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll like kind of say this as like an aside. It's like comedy is hard to write. We've all kind of talked about how difficult it is to like pull off a good comedy since we've seen a bunch of failed ones.
Mm.
Comedy, like just write what you think is funny, but don't scrape the bottom of the barrel. If you're gonna go with something funny, even if it's slapstick, if you're gonna like write it for either a scene or like a piece of literature, you should describe it in a way that can be nuanced with at least a decent audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really up to how you execute it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, this movie.
Right.
I will say that the animation is really, really nice actually.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah.
It looks not just like the quality itself, which is really good, but especially like the designs of like Whoville are actually like really interesting, and they really fit the Dr.
Yeah.
Seuss style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we watched the stupidest movie, which was and the most horrific and traumatizing movie, which is How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh my
And these designs are definitely way better and capture the mood much better for Dr. Seuss. Not to say that this is like obviously the best film adaptation they could have done for Dr. Seuss, but
It's from what it's pretty much better than like every other like modern Dr. Seuss thing that's happened.
Yeah, I
So-
think
Which
general
is really
consensus.
sad.
Yeah, the general consensus is all of the modern Dr. Seuss movies. This is the least offensive, and like even Jim Carrey, who is in this movie, he wasn't bad.
Eh,
Yeah.
he didn't ruin it. I didn't like him, but he wasn't like,
He wasn't the worst.
No,
Yeah.
This is probably his best role that we've seen.
which is really not saying that much.
No.
Yeah, it's not saying that much, but
But yeah, so like the visuals are good. The characters are just kind of
whatever.
yeah, they're just kind of annoying mostly.
No. They're not whatever. They're very extreme. Like
Yeah.
Horton is really extreme
Oh.
in one direction, then the kangaroo is really extreme in the other direction, and then everyone is even the mayor is extreme in one direction, and it's like no one is in the middle.
Yeah.
I guess speaking of extremes, let's talk about the weird political undertones
Yeah,
of this
okay,
movie.
like
Yeah.
so the whole thing that the kangaroo turns this into is that like the fact that he believes that there's people on this spec is like somehow a way of it's like it changes their worldview, which therefore undermines the kangaroo's authority. And it's like
Yeah.
this is kind of like heavy commentary on like conservative authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Which is
There were
There were a
weird.
couple
Like,
times.
is this actually how the book was? I don't remember.
I
I
don't know.
don't remember either.
That's why I
I'm
say,
sure
like-
the moral was probably the same, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think it went about it like this.
Yeah,
That's
it's
kind of
just
why I
really
say
weird.
like the political undertones of the movie, because I don't think there were political undertones in the book. It was just about you are part of a bigger picture and you should consider that and not be so like up your own ass.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird to see though, because I don't know, it's obviously done like exaggeratingly, but like it's not that like wrong in terms of the behavior that people use to like manipulate other people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's weird because it's one of those. It's basically like it reminds me of the whole like the gay marriage thing about how like some people are still like mad about it, how it's like gonna ruin society or something, and it's like when you but yet from my perspective, I'm like it literally doesn't fucking matter to you. Like if you're
Yeah.
not
No.
gay, why do you care? Like I mean,
Yeah,
again, from your own
exactly.
selfish perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the situation here. It's like, okay, there's people on the spec. Who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? Like, why do you give a shit? It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's weird. The only like thing that's a bit weird about it is that this whole thing about believing there's people on a spec and her saying like, no, you can't believe things that you can't see or whatever. It's like it's kind of like anti-religious in a sense, but again, it's framed in that conservative authoritarianism, which usually uses religion to its advantage. So it's kind of like flipped in that regard. But
It's super
It's
weird.
really
yeah,
strange.
it's really odd.
I don't. Why did they choose to go with that for a kids movie?
Yeah, it is weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it, if I like it or not, because again, part of it is like, since it is like, why would they do this for the kids movie? Like that kind of behavior is kind of important to get across as like not good, because like
is,
people do
but I
fall
feel
for
like
it, but it's like yeah, it's
the way it was
handled
done was
weird.
super weird.
It was, and it was kind of like, what are we watching right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that. I guess, well, okay. They kind of just started that just a little bit touched upon this, but it kind of, there's this whole, like, element, at least in terms of the concept, of, like, you're at the mercy of something that's completely not in your control.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And and again, just very briefly, like once like the contact is first made, they get into like how fucking terrifying that can be.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of like get out of that, and I was like, remember how I was talking like for the Cloverfield thing, how I would like a different movie that also featured like more like, completely weirder stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like something like this. Like, what if they took this concept, but made it like surrealist horror?
Oh god.
Horton
I guess you
hears
could
a
argue that
who
for
is
the mayor it was surrealist
I
horror.
guess, but of course the movie's not done like that. But like think of that idea. Like I think this is kind of a lot of stuff behind what's his name, Lovecraft. Like a lot of his kinds of things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
humans are just we're literally like ants compared to these like beings, right? And it's kind of the
Right.
whole it gets into a whole thing about like extraterrestrials where it's like if their technology is so advanced and they can get here and all this kind of stuff, then like would they even view us as like equal to them, or would they view us like we view ants, right?
Yeah.
So it can kind of get to that, and I think if there's a really clever and psychologically disturbing kind of movie idea in there that I don't think has quite been done. So I don't know. I think that'd be definitely a different movie than this, but it would be interesting to see that as like a concept if they could do that. But yeah, so I'm not sure. There's a lot of things in this movie where I'm like not sure how I feel about it, and then I do think like the characters are kind of a negative, not like a huge negative, but like a bit of a negative.
Yeah.
Some of the story elements, like the plot points themselves, are kind of stupid, and
Like the bridge.
yeah, like that was just
Oh my
stupid.
God. Yep.
There's some other things, but again, like some of the story ideas and like the visuals are positives, so it's like
Yeah.
I guess it averages
kinda
out to just like a neutral, but it's weird.
This year has been going very strangely.
Yeah.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah. Okay, what was up with that like yellow hedgehog thing?
The Katie? I have
Yeah,
no
it
idea.
was so weird.
Whenever I see her, I get so freaked out because
It's like
so
they're trying to make her like really creepy, but like there's a scene like in kind of near like the 2/3 mark where she's just like normal and talking, and it's like, wait, what? Like it's so weird.
Just those kinds of choices are just kind of. I
I'm
can't
sure
even.
that was supposed to be like a meme or a product of the time or something, but it's just really no.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were trying to make a meme.
I don't know.
You mean like how for the Emoji Movie they tried to make a movement with that dance or whatever?
Oh my.
Why did you have to remind me that existed?
I'm sorry.
I hate you.
It's
Time
just
to
much
watch
better
I
than
Hate
Emoji
Everything.
Movie.
Ugh. Yeah.
Go watch I Hate Everything.
It's just sad.
Yeah, so this was the thing. It could have been a lot worse, I guess.
Could have been
Yeah.
worse. But, just stick to the original Dr. Seuss animations. It's more worth your time.
Yeah. I mean,
Or read the.
if someone forced you to watch one of these modern Dr. Seuss ones, I guess watch this one, but yeah. Thank God we're not watching like the Lorax.
Oh my god!
I'd be
I would just
so fucking mad.
I would just die because of the whole like stupid one slur stuff. Oh, my
God,
god!
he's so annoying.
Especially with how like over the top and everything that whole thing became.
Yeah, and I think it completely
dear.
fucked up the whole message of the movie, and just that whole movie is just a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
So at
Yep.
least we didn't watch that. We watched this instead. Upgrade, woo!
Woo!
Yeah.
Uh,
Only
So
we could have gotten out of watching The Grunge.
yeah, at least.
which is
Still traumatized by that movie.
which,
Yeah, I know, right?
which is worse, the Grinch or the Lorax?
Ooh. Visually, The Grinch.
Yes,
visually.
definitely.
When we watched that, I felt like my childhood trauma come back, and I was like, oh shit.
I felt the air get sucked out of my lungs.
I felt the soul get sucked out of my body.
It was like Valen with Wallace and Gromit.
Oh,
We don't speak of that.
I'm sorry.
But I don't know, from my perspective, like, I find the Grinch to be, like, fascinatingly bad. And I feel like the Lorax would just make me want to kill myself. So,
I mean, it probably would make us. I mean, how could you mess up a message like that?
I don't know. By adding in fucking hipsters.
Oh no, and Minion like rejects.
Oh yeah, Minion rejects
Oh,
and fucking, like, yeah, just, I was afraid, I will say, like, when they first showed, like, the son of the mayor and he was all, like, emo looking, I was like, oh shit, like, they're doing this. But they kind of didn't really, like, go all the way with that.
I'm at least happy about that.
So,
He just became the emo band kid, which is
Yeah.
fine.
that said, when I thought when he finally does speak at the end, I'm like, his voice sounds familiar. And I looked up and it's Jesse McCartney, who's Roxas in Kingdom Hearts, and I'm like, oh,
Wait,
now I'm
just
sad.
what?
Jesse
Yeah.
McCartney?
So
He's Roxas?
yeah, he's Roxas and Ventus
I
in
didn't
Kingdom
know
Hearts.
that. On that high note,
What?
Oh my god, calm down.
we're gonna go to more heights in the next movie, maybe, probably.
I mean, we honestly we know literally one thing about the next movie, and that's the country that made it.
yeah.
We don't know anything about the actual content of the movie, so.
Yeah, so,
And honestly, considering the reputation of the country that made it, this could be really bad or it could be hilariously awesome.
Yeah.
yeah. I guess we'll see.
So we'll find out. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.